You know exactly what your triggers are. You can trace it back to the wound. You can explain it in detail to your therapist. Your mother's critical voice lives full alive in your head. And you know the purity culture messaging that warped your relationship with your body. You know that the good girl messaging that you received caused you to shrink. You know all of this. And yet, why does your voice still shake when you try to set a boundary? Why does your body still lock up in rooms where you once led? Why do you still apologize for taking up space or editing yourself mid-sentence? You still feel that familiar flinch when someone's energy starts to shift. Here's the one thing that no one ever actually told you. All those books, all the therapy, all that expensive self-awareness, knowing about your wounds doesn't actually heal them. You can see the cycle. You can watch yourself do it in real time, and yet you still can't stop yourself because you're trying to think your way out of something that's happening in your nervous system. You're looking at the problem through the filter that is causing the very situation you're in. And that filter, it was installed decades ago by well-meaning people who told you that your needs were selfish, that your body was shameful, that your voice was just too much. But you're not stuck because you haven't done the work. You're stuck because the work actually needs to go deeper than your mind. Today, we're talking about the pain threshold. It's this invisible tripwire that stimulates a reaction, the split second where your body takes over before your brain can catch up. It's why you can know better and still not be any different. It's about the filter that you can't see because you're actually looking through it. If you've done all the therapy and you're still feeling stuck, this is why. So let's get into it. You belong here. There's a quote by an unknown author that says, "Heal so you can hear what's being said without the filter of your wound." And it's so incredibly true. If you're able to, I want you to do a little exercise with me. Now, if you're driving, obviously you can't do this, but you can imagine, right? But if you're not driving, you can just take your hands and I want you to just interlace your fingers just a little bit. I want you to leave some space, some gap, but I want you to place them over your eyes like this. Can you see through your fingers? Yeah. Can you see a little bit? Of course. Can you see clearly? Absolutely not. This is what we call the filter screen, and you're seeing life through it, whether you're aware of it or not. And this is exactly why you still react in the same ways, in the same old ways you always have, even in spite of all the work that you've done, all the therapy that you've gone to. It's an invisible cycle that keeps you stuck at some plateau. So today we're going to talk about how to move past it and into freedom. So I want to let you know that this isn't about more self-awareness, because self-awareness can only get you so far. Self-awareness is required to move into this. But self-awareness alone isn't going to do the job. It's not going to get it done. So this is about understanding why your body still reacts before your brain has a chance to catch up. It's about the missing piece of knowing better and being different. So we can know better. I know I shouldn't react this way, but yet I still do. And there's a big difference between knowing better and then actually being different, being transformed, if you will. How do I transform from still having this guttural reaction to something into being at peace regardless of what's happening around me? So I want to talk to you about what the filter screen is. The filter screen, imagine, if you will, you remember those blue blocker sunglasses? They were very amber colored lenses. And when you put them on, everything that you looked at was just either brighter and richer and warmer because they're very amber toned lenses. It totally skewed what things really looked like. That's what a filter screen is. It's just a lens. And it's usually comprised of whatever lie we're believing or whatever we have going on, past hurts or wounds or anything like that. So say your husband comes home, and we'll use the same example we used last episode. He says, "What do you do all day long?" That has been now received through your filter screen. Your filter screen, remember, holds these belief systems. So you're receiving what's being said through a belief system, right? That belief system then evokes a thought. That thought, maybe I'm not good enough. No matter how hard I try, I'll never be good enough. Those thoughts then birth emotions. Your emotion, remember last week we talked about emotions are not bad. They're actually a gift. They're like, hey, wake up. There's something going on here that you need to look beneath the surface, see what's really going on. What are you really believing here? So we have these emotions, but so often we've told ourselves we shouldn't feel, or I shouldn't be this way, or I shouldn't feel this way. This shouldn't bother me, but it still does, right? And it's because of this filter screen. This filter screen holds everything that comes next. So like if I'm thinking I'm not good enough, it's going through this filter screen, and that filter screen then makes me think I'm not good enough. That evokes emotions that I'm bad, or no one's ever going to love me, or I have to perform in order to gain your love. I have to meet certain expectations in order for you to love me. Then those emotions then dictate our behavior. Now, your behavior may be anything from trying to over-explain yourself or trying to justify something. Like you may, like I said in last episode, you may come back with a whole laundry list of, well, this is what I actually got done today, right? This is what I actually got done. And this is how my day went. And you're trying to explain everything and justify why you didn't meet some expectation, spoken or unspoken. You may also have emotions or behaviors rather of, well, I'm never going to be good enough. So then you shut down of, what is the point? What is the point of me even trying to do anything if even at my best, I'm not good enough? I'm not good enough to receive this person's love. I'm not good enough to for them to accept me and to love me where I'm at and the way I am. So you have this whole range of things that are going on inside. This is what we call the pain threshold. And unfortunately, if we don't deal with it, it becomes a cycle, and it just starts all over again. You know, we grow to the pinnacle of the pain, and then we come back down. We resolve to do better. We resolve to work on ourselves more. We resolve to, I will just work harder, and I will be more critical of how I spend my time. Or I will be more critical of, I need to be a better Christian, or whatever yours is. We resolve to behavior modification, thinking that this is going to fix the problem. But then another situation happens, and the whole cycle starts again. It goes through the filter screen that evokes thoughts, which births emotions, which results in behaviors. Those behaviors can be modified, and we try to do better. And then another situation happens. We just keep going through the cycle. It's like a hamster wheel. How do you get off the hamster wheel? You have to dig a little deeper and realize that what's going on is it just in your mind. It's not just a mental game. It's not even, yes, it deals with the heart, but it's also a nervous system thing. Like your body holds trauma. And there's ways to like dig to the deep core root of things in order to get to that and release it. And you can release it. You can release that trauma from your body. You can release it from your heart, and you can experience the transcending freedom that you've been looking for. Let me give you another example. Say, for instance, you're wanting to set a boundary. But when you start to set the boundary, your voice shakes a little bit. You're actually a little scared to set this boundary because you're not sure how it's going to be perceived or received from the other person. And so you start having an experience through the pain threshold, which is initially, it first goes through the filter screen. And say your filter screen is that speaking up means I'm being selfish. That equals bad. Because as a Christian, being selfish is bad, right? So if I'm speaking up and I'm trying to set a boundary, that means I'm being selfish, and ultimately I'm a bad person. Here's the belief behind that. My needs don't really matter as much as everybody else's does. My needs don't really matter as much as keeping peace does. I'd rather be a peacekeeper than actually have a good, healthy boundary set. Your thought may be, if I push this, I'll lose connection. If I push this, then they're going to retaliate, or they're going to back off, or they're not going to engage with me They're going to see me as being selfish. So therefore, they're going to disconnect from me. And then your behavior may result in softened words, or you may even apologize for bringing it up and then back down and maybe even admit that you were wrong and then decide to just, I'm going to live in peace. So therefore, I'm just not going to bring it up again. I'm just going to learn to live within my circumstances. And then here's the thing. That false belief is then confirmed. See, I can't do this because it's not safe. And this is why therapy hasn't worked, because it's actually not dealt with the threshold. It's dealt with the behavior modification, or it's dealt with don't think those thoughts, think these thoughts. It hasn't gotten to the root. Here's the thing about why this cycle is so incredibly powerful. It's because it's on autopilot. It's automatic and it's unconscious. It happens in milliseconds. It's been running in the background for decades. The moment it is engaged, it's automatic and it happens almost instantaneously. It's like it's been idling underneath the surface, and then once it gets poked, it's just full blown. And every time it happens, every repetition, it actually reinforces and deepens the groove. It reinforces those belief systems. The trap is that you're aware of the cycle, but awareness doesn't stop it from occurring. And here's why awareness alone is just not going to be enough. Because you can name your wounds, but you still flinch when they're touched. You can understand your patterns and still repeat them over and over again. You can see the cycle, but you can't seem to stop it. You know you're on the hamster wheel, but you don't know how to get off. Your nervous system hasn't been recalibrated. Now, I know this sounds, kind of scientific, but our bodies were divinely created. Not only do we have a body and we have like body, soul, and spirit, right? We have our spirit self, our spirit man, which is perfect and redeemed. Then we have our soul, which is made up of our mind, will, and emotions. Then we have our body, which is made up of blood, bone, and flesh. And they're all connected. And when you're having soul wounds and issues, it affects you physically. So not only when we're doing the deep work of the soul work or getting to the soul issues, but it's also a body recalibration too. So like if you are working on the deep work, your soul work, right? You have to also give your body an opportunity to connect to that. And I know that sounds all woo-woo and you're not looking for woo-woo. This isn't woo-woo. Look, we were divinely created, and our body has to recalibrate to the truths that we're going to be planting in place of the lies. We just have to give ourselves a little time. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to recognize the filter. I want you to recognize that you have one, first of all. And second of all, start thinking about what is my filter? And here's the thing, there could be multiple belief systems being held in one filter, okay? It's one filter, but multiple belief systems that make it up. However, there's usually one primary thing that keeps coming back. And when you start doing the deep work, you may see some repetition. You may see like, this is the same message, just in a different package, but it's the same thing over and over. It's because usually there's one deep-rooted belief system that we have that's driving everything else. And while there might be an offshoot of this belief or an offshoot of that belief or whatever it is, there's usually one primary one that's just driving the whole train. And I want you to examine them. Therapy helped you identify the lies, but then I want you to start examining the lies that you're believing. And you may think, I don't even know that I believe any lies. Well, let me ask you something. You ever believe that you have to perform at a certain level in order to be worthy of somebody's love? Do you ever believe that the only way you're worthy of somebody's love is if you are meeting their expectations? Or maybe your own. Maybe you've set your own expectations of, I'm not good enough unless I do X, Y, Z. And then when you're doing X, Y, Z, then I'm worthy, I'm good. Those are all lies. Those are all false belief systems. And here's why. Because God said that you are good. Even in your depravity, you were good. Even while you were still a sinner, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Even at your worst, you were good enough for Jesus' blood. And if that isn't good enough, then I don't know what is. Like, if you were good enough, even at your absolute worst, you were good enough for Jesus's blood, then you can certainly be good enough for those around you. And if they don't believe that, that's their problem. It's their loss. They're the ones who's missing out. If you don't believe that, then it's your problem, your loss, and you're missing out on the authentic life you were called to live. One of power, calibration, transformation, and full authentic freedom. Here's how you start allowing your body an opportunity to catch up. You start recalibrating your nervous system. When you start replacing the lie with the truth, you're actually creating new neural pathways in your brain. When you start creating these new neural pathways in your brain, your whole entire body starts taking on you. It is transformative. You become new all over again. The Bible says that I am a new creature. Old things have passed away, and yet now all things new have come. And you may be looking at that scripture and thinking, well, old things all haven't passed away. I'm still struggling in this area. I'm still hitting the wall every time I turn around. That is because your body has not caught up yet. You haven't created new neural pathways. These new neural pathways are created through replacing the lie with the truth that God says about you. When you start replacing the lie with the truth that God says about you, you start creating new pathways. You start recalibrating your body. You start recalibrating your soul. It's not about positive thinking or spiritual bypassing or anything like that. It's about doing the deep work. It's about getting to the nitty-gritty. Let's get down to the root cause of it. It's about changing what you see through the filter by healing the wounds that created the filter in the first place. You can now hear what's being said without the filter of your wound. In the old pattern, the emotion peaks, reaction happens, and the cycle repeats. But with the new pattern, emotions arise, but you pause and you choose. And you think to yourself, what lie am I believing in this? And then what is the truth? And then you choose truth. And in choosing truth, you start to respond from the truth. And then the gap between the stimulus and the response, that's where freedom lives. The gap of stopping for a moment, taking time to take a little quick inventory of seeing what's really going on beneath the surface, bridging that gap between what started the feeling, the stimulus, and then how I'm going to respond to it. That is where the recalibration lives. That's where freedom lives. You can start living authentically yourself when false beliefs are replaced with truth at the body level, not just the soul level. Yes, the soul is important, but you start giving your brain, you start giving your body a chance to catch up to where your soul already is. And then you start living in freedom when your nervous systems know that you're safe to take up space, that it's okay that you exist. And you start living in freedom when your filter screen is clear enough to see yourself clearly and others accurately. The goal isn't perfection, it's authenticity. Responding from who you really are, not who you were taught to be. You were taught to be this good girl, this good Christian, wife, mother, caretaker, whatever. But you already are those things. So when you live authentically, you can understand that you are those things already. You are already approved. You are already good. And when you have that freedom of understanding who you already are, and that is not something you have to strive to be, then you can live in freedom and confidence and security that whether those around you accept it or not, you're still okay. You're still authentically you. You're still free and living life in abundance. This week, I want to challenge you to take inventory. When something comes up and you see your body starting to react before your mind has a chance to catch up, I want you to look at it for a second and then try to name what's going on in your filter screen. What belief is coloring that moment? Remember, we talked about filter screen is just a lens, like a like a pair of sunglasses. It's coloring the situation. If your husband comes home and says, "What do you do all day long?" You can stop for a moment and take inventory and realize, okay, am I receiving this as an accusation or condemnation that I'll never measure up? Or is he asking how I've spent my day? And here's the thing. He could very well be condemning you, and that's on him. And I'm not advocating for marital strife. Do not hear what I am not saying. What I am saying is that if he is condemning you or judging you, that's on him. He has some heart work to do because you are beautifully and wonderfully made. You were made in the likeness and image of our Father. You are good. You were worth every drop of Jesus's blood. You were good for him. You were good enough for it even when you were in your absolute worst, in your most grotesque depravity, under all the sin of the earth. He still would have died for you because you are that valuable to him. If you're that valuable to the King of Kings and the Most High, and say your husband can't see that, that is on him. He has some heart work to do. And that is not your responsibility. Now, you can still love him and you can still care for him and you can pray for him and pray over him and you can meet him where he's at and still be there for him and love him and nurture your relationship. But you don't have to walk away feeling shame or guilt or stuck. That's the freedom. It's not pointing at your husband and telling him, "Oh, you've got some heart work to do." No. That's his journey. Your journey is understanding that I know who I am in Christ. I know the value and worth that I bring to the table. I know how I've spent my day. I know that I've done my absolute best, and I'm not going to walk in shame or guilt for not meeting some unspoken or spoken expectation. I know that sounds really hard. Sounds really hard, and it sounds like I'm meddling. It sounds like I'm meddling in your marriage and telling you, like, you should just stand up to your husband and tell him to, put him in his place. No, friend. No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I want you to be free. I want you to experience the life you were destined to live. I want you to experience the freedom that Jesus died for to give to you. I don't want you to continue feeling stuck. You've read all the books, you've done the therapy, you're listening to podcasts, you've even probably gone through some inner healing training and experiences, and you still feel stuck. I want you to feel unstuck. I want you to not just feel, but experience the authenticity that you're so desperately looking for. And it is not easy. It is simple, but it takes work. It takes focus. It takes willing to look in the mirror. It takes willing to face some things that you've been running from for a long time. It takes honesty. It takes courage, but it is worth it. So here are some questions for reflection this week. I want you to ask yourself, what situation this week triggered an automatic response? What did my filter show me in that moment? What belief was operating underneath? And what would change if that belief wasn't true? Friend, this is not a quick fix. You already know that. You're rewriting decades of conditioning and decoding all the stuff that's been embedded in you since childhood. So I want you to be patient with yourself. I want you to be patient with your nervous system. I want you to celebrate the micro moments where you catch those lies and you catch those false beliefs. Celebrate those little moments. Celebrate the quick wins. And it's okay. I want you to remember that it's okay that awareness wasn't enough. You just needed something deeper. I hope you've gotten value out of today's episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, make a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.